Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning if you happen to be in New Zealand. Welcome back to the Open Ocean Fall 2020 seminar. I'm Dr. Katie Croft-Bell, Director of the Open Ocean Initiative at the MIT Media Lab. In case you've missed previous events, I'm going to put links to our 2020 seminars so you can see past events as well as the current fall lineups. We are now into our second seminar of the fall, and this fall, we're exploring access and equity in ocean science and recreation, and so that we can consider how those critical components can translate to deep sea exploration. And I'm very, very happy to introduce today's speaker, Schannel Van Dijken. He is the Marine Program Director for Conservation International's Asia Pacific Field Program, President of the Samoa Voyaging Society, and a National Geographic Explorer. While living in Samoa for the past decade, he has worked with national and regional Pacific communities intimately involved in environmental initiatives. Schannel has had the privilege of leading terrestrial and marine biodiversity survey teams and building diverse and sustainable partnerships and projects. As a marine biologist and a Polynesian voyager, he has spent significant time exploring the open ocean and the challenges we face in the Pacific and globally. Today, Schannel will present his work on building Guardians, a program based on traditional voyaging canoe, or va'a, culture and environmental education. This is a Samoa National Partnership Initiative developing the Samoa Voyaging Canoe as an experiential education floating classroom that engages communities directly as a means to bolster environmental management. The program focuses on enhancing voyaging, stewardship, and environmental literacy of coastal communities through youth engagement and empowerment. Schannel, so happy to have you today. Please help me in welcoming Schannel Van Dijken. And I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the platform here at Katie and MIT Labs. It's great to be able to share these stories, and I really like what you're doing. So thank you for this opportunity, and talofa everybody. Today I'll just be sharing a little bit about what we're doing in Samoa, and in a sort of storytelling platform. And hopefully that there'll be some lessons learned along the way and some ideas to take away. And at the end, we'll just have some time for some questions, and I'm happy to engage with you all after this. I suppose, how do you want me to do this now? Just share my screen and dive into it?
Yeah, whenever you're ready, go for it.
All right, I will do that right now. Today's talk is going to be on Guardians of the Oceanscape, because we refer to our ocean as our oceanscape. And it's like Katie had said before, we're looking at building our traditional voyaging canoe as an environmental and cultural floating classroom. Today we'll just take you through some of the how we got there, and first some history, then how we got there, what we're doing, and what we're aiming to do to sustain this program in Samoa, and hopefully amplify it further afield. Before I start, this is only due to the partners that have been able to come on board, and we're very, very grateful for these partners that you see some along the bottom here, such as Conservation International, the Samoa Voyaging Society, the Samoa government, and the National University of Samoa, some local civil society in Samoa, such as the Samoa Conservation Society and the Youth Climate Action Network, and UNESCO and National Geographic, as well as some funding support from Kainda and Nature Conservation Fund in Japan. And I just wanted to put those out there first, because it's really important that we establish these partnerships to actually help move things along. So, with saying that, let's get into a story. So when we were talking about where we are today and what we're doing with voyaging, I always want to come back to taking a step back and looking at our blue canoe, this lone blue marble in the galaxy where we're at. And as you'll see that our planet, it's a blue planet. And for thousands of years, this major blue ball was a was the stomping ground, so to speak, of my Polynesian and Pacific ancestors, who this was their home. This is what they were used to. This was what they developed an oceanic civilization around. And this is a big deal, because when you look at our planet, it is one blue planet. So I put this there to just remind us that we are alone in this cosmos, and it's a watery planet that we're alone on. So that photo that that you saw there before was actually taken from the space shuttle Atlantis here. Galileo, the probe that you see there in the top right, that was launched from Atlantis. And it's this ethos of exploration that we were able to take such photos and explore our galaxy and find out more about where we are. So the reason I bring this up is because thousands of years ago, that is exactly what our ancestors in the Pacific were doing. They were utilizing and building canoes, voyaging canoes, to explore this massive blue planet, which in today's day and age is like going out into the universe and discovering what is out there. The Pacific was as unknown to humanity as what our solar system is. And what this also signifies is that there was the same level of long-term engineering and planning and navigation of training that goes into an astronaut that would go into being a navigator or a canoe builder, with having this urgency and this pursuing of exploration. And you know, the key to that success was determined by the knowledge and the amount of preparation that was involved in actually building these canoes, these space shuttles of our time. And regardless if you were on a space shuttle or you're on these voyaging canoes, you were fully aware that you only had one support system, which was the canoe you were on or the space shuttle you're on. And it was your lifeline. And so you had to be really adept and aware of the limited resources that you had at hand. So having this ethos of having isolated islands that you live on, isolated canoes as your only life raft, reflected that these values of guardianship and stewardship that was required to sustain ourselves on these sea of islands that you see scattered across the Pacific. And the success of that was the success of how we were able to do that was on this preparation and knowledge transfer of those skills over millennia. And so I wanted to show this slide and what we were able to do in a Pacific setting, with having this ethos of knowing nature, knowing your responsibility, being able to survive and make do with what you have in order to really explore and expand across a vast ocean. So here we have just a brief depiction of how the expansion of Polynesia happened from around Samoa about 3,000 years ago. And around 1,000 years ago, there was, after a long pause, the development of these robust ocean voyaging canoes, which then started more migration eastward to Cook Islands, to Hawaii, Rapa Nui, down to New Zealand. And this was only ever achieved via innovation and technology and in developing these robust voyaging canoes, as well as the sophisticated wayfinding system enabled to navigate and locate certain islands or be able to return safely. And then as those islands were found, then developing quite regular trade routes between them. And all this was actually in using nature to use to actually build the canoes, but using nature to also navigate by. When we go to Mars, at least we're going to have a map and calculation vectors. But when Polynesians were exploring, they made that map. They used the stars to navigate, and nature was their guiding computer system. And this is the impact that Polynesia has had on civilization and history. And it's an impact that I don't think is told enough, because this was amazing what they were able to achieve in millennia ago with only using nature, only using the stars, the sun, the moon, to be able to find specks of islands in this vast sea. Now, it was important that we look at the behavior and the knowledge and the planning and that stewardship ethos that allowed this expansion to happen and islanders to thrive. And this was due to the ability to pass down this information through generations. And this was done through interactive storytelling and done through games and songs and chants and models and hands-on lessons and activities, and not reading and writing. It was, because that wasn't hardwired into us. And we had oral tradition, so a lot of storytelling and solidifying these knowledge and concepts in our youth in such young ages, but in such a way that encapsulated the teachings in such a strong way. But as we know that as time progressed, some of these things changed. Some of the knowledge transfer systems changed. And as we had other explorers come into the region, other approaches were adopted. And we moved away from some of this more interactive, hands-on song and dance transmission of knowledge, more into reading and writing. And so this culturally defining practice of knowledge transfer did erode over this time. And as time still progressed, more and more changes occurring, lines being drawn up across the planet. And as we progress some more, where things continue to change, and what we're now seeing is we're in the midst of really dealing with climate change, increase in sea surface temperatures, increase in ocean acidification and pollution and overfishing. The list of threats now that our ocean is facing, it can be as long as your imagination, because it seems endless. And so these changes have really had an impact on our ocean states. But not all changes have been bad. And what we've been finding now is that we are now in this phase where we're all now recognizing the past traditional knowledge and the strengths that they had in helping to solve today's problems, and helping to empower the very people that are now being impacted by a lot of the impacts of climate change and the threats that we've inundated ourselves with. And this is, for voyaging, for instance, this is a heritage that the Polynesian Voyaging Society has revived when it built and launched Tukulea, and that was the first double-hulled canoe seen in over 600 years. And it was like when the likes of Nainoa Thompson sought out help from Master Navigator Mau Pialub from Statawal to help bring back that voyaging skill of wayfinding and navigation, because that was being lost, because we had lost the transferability of that knowledge. This is traditional knowledge now that we are recapturing and bringing back through other voyaging societies across the Pacific, such as the Samoa Voyaging Society, and perpetuating voyaging culture and these approaches to how we transmit the knowledge that we're learning. And it's amazing to see, because what we're seeing in today's times, that we've got now over 20 voyaging canoes across the Pacific, and which has been wonderful to see, and the likes of Okeanos, which has helped to build a number of those. And so we're getting a lot more recognition in the fact that traditional knowledge is here to be able to help us look at the current problems that we have and use that to find some real tangible, empowering solutions. And so with that, and what we're doing in Samoa, and looking at these canoes, because we see them really as floating classrooms, we see that also intentional, organized outdoor education classrooms really work. And we, in Samoa, we wanted to really merge the two and use the voyaging canoe as this vessel-based education system that would be able to easily access our communities, and through fun and engaging education, really inspire our communities. And we knew that such an approach would resonate. We first trialed this out when the movie Moana came out, the Disney movie Moana, and we worked with Disney to take the Moana movie around Samoa. I'll show you a quick video of that.
The movie Moana has inspired the traditional voyaging for me. I love the ocean.
Everything in that movie connects with our culture.
Gaualofa is alive. She's a twin hull canoe. You take care of her, she'll look after you just as well.
We're taking the movie Moana around Samoa with our traditional voyaging canoe to deliver this very powerful message. We were voyagers. We were caretakers of our land.
This is the story of our Samoana Faulanga, our sacred ocean voyage. We see this sacred ocean voyage as a stand to help our communities realize what's at stake. The immediate threats the Pacific Ocean is facing is pollution, habitat destruction, overfishing, and climate change.
If we do not take care of the ocean will definitely not give us what we need.
The Gaualofa represents a living culture for us. We're using it to take this very important message about how important it is for us to take care of our oceans. Not only our oceans, but our land. The two have to be in harmony.
We go into the communities, and we sit down and we talk about the environmental issues at hand, and also learn from them what they've been doing in order to mitigate some of the effects that they're seeing from overfishing or climate change. Our communities here on the ground, they're the front line if we are going to sustain our resources. The main message that this movie and this voyage is about is reconnecting to your past, seeing where you come from, knowing that your responsibility is being an environmental steward.
We're teaching culture, we're teaching navigation, we're teaching environment.
Everybody knows what Gaualofa brings. She talks about awareness of the environment, conserving, using only what you have at hand, and how ancestors, how they voyaged, how they lived.
We travel to our communities and we conduct these workshops. And in the evening, after a day of exchange and learning, we show the movie Moana. They capture some of these key messages in a culturally proud way. It gives us something as Polynesians to be proud of.
And when then there's pride, there can be change.
Gaualofa is your symbol of who we are, how we got here. It's a nainga, it's a family, it's the whole island, it's the whole world.
The response, the level of energy has been awe-inspiring. The support from our partners has been fantastic. Disney, Okeanos, our Voyaging Society, Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment and Agriculture and Fisheries, and all our other local partners. I'm just delighted.
I would like to say to all the young generation of Samoa, protect our environment and our ocean, because that is the key to our future.
So that was our pilot that we did in 2017, and then from there we really saw the appetite and the embracement of our communities and hunger for such a program, and that led us on this journey to try and work with what we've seen work in other places and developing a more formalized education system that is vessel-based. And so we were fortunate enough then to also know that as part of Conservation International, they had supported the Calabia floating classroom development in West Papua. And this floating classroom spent the last 10 years working around those islands and really building the environmental literacy of the communities there. And it would visit each community throughout the year, and then the following year it would circle back and come around and do the next cohort of kids in those schools, but engaging the whole community. And they had this really fun, interactive approach. And so in taking the learnings from that, we wanted to develop our own Samoan and Polynesian style and curriculum. So we had an exchange with the Calabia folks and the success of that. And we developed the Guardian's Voyaging Floating Classroom initiative in Samoa. So the next following slides is just going to show you the process of what we did, how we did that, the co-creation, so to speak, with all our partners in that journey. When we first started with the exchange, we brought over the educators from the Calabia, and we had a number of stakeholders in Samoa, including some community elders and village chiefs that came in, so then to discuss how these modules could look in a Pacific Island setting, in a community setting. That was another great week of workshopping with a diverse group of people that you wouldn't normally bring together for developing an education system, or program, I should say. At the end of that, what we created were 7 modules that were around the different learning types of the theory of multiple intelligences. And there was lots of learning in the curriculum speak about how different people learn and how our kids learn. So there was a lot that participants got out of it, even myself, because I'm not an educator, but I've learned a lot myself through this journey. So the 7 modules that we really decided to focus on with the key messages were wise fisher, being sustaining fisheries, tree guardians and climate change, looking at the importance of trees and mangroves, what climate change is, coral champion, looking at the coral biology, why that's important, and then the habitat appreciation of corals and the beauty and actually what that habitat provides for coasts and the communities. That waste management with our trash star, and then voyaging modules, which was really looking at our Polynesian history and then what it took to be able to actually sail, and the ability, your ability required to be a natural scientist, because you need to have great observation skills and looking at the weather as well as in order to navigate. And we designed this program that would spend a week in the community and would have rotating participation as the groups would move around in the week. Then we would look at training our trainers that would be going out, which included some of the Ministry of Education teachers, but then our Samoa Voyaging Society crew and Youth Climate Action Network volunteers as well. So we actually had a couple of weeks of training educators in being able to deliver a hands-on interactive education program. Then this is where we just rolled it out, and we started, we hit the communities, and I'm just going to show you a series of slides of how some of these modules looked in the wild, so to speak. These are just some of the games with the Wise Fisher module there, and the Tree Guardians. So this is where the key messages is why trees are important, why mangroves are important, what their function is, and how it's related to climate change and capturing carbon. These are some of the fun pictures you see here, and I will say that there's not a frown in sight when you're here through the week. The kids are laughing and smiling all week, and it really it's hard work, but it just keeps you energized, because the hunger they have for such an education system to be interactive and outdoors is palatable. And so this is the coral champions module, and so they're learning games here. They're in the water, being able to describe what live corals and dead corals look like. And this game that you see up in the top left here is actually describing that corals actually have polyps that feed, and that on those polyps that they have zooxanthellae. And so at the end of the week, these kids walk away knowing what zooxanthellae is, how coral gets its color, how it loses its color, that their corals are actually animals and the like. And it's amazing, they never have had that in their education system, and even the teachers didn't know some of the names and how this worked. So it's been really amazing to see the outcome after a week in a community with the kids and the teachers. This is our trash stars, and learning about the importance of proper waste management in the islands, because we only have a small area to live on, and it is vital that we use all the resources that we can, and we recycle, we reduce, we reuse anything that we can. This is just some of the games that we would be doing during the day to keep it fun, uplifting, and energized. So lots of activity, lots of running around. With the Samoa Voyaging modules, there was a lot about just learning some history, our place in the Pacific, where different islands are in the Pacific, how we got to where we are, and then also on the canoe, what the parts of the canoe are, why those parts are important, why it's important to understand weather, making sure that you are always watching the horizon, seeing what's coming. Building your own canoes, so they would build some of their own smaller canoes, and also put together a paupau. So a paupau is this little outrigger here. And then at the end of each of the days, we would show different environmental movies, which would engage the wider community. Before and after each of the campaigns that we would go into the communities, we would do social perception surveys, just to so we could understand what the level of environmental knowledge was, and what we understood were the actual threats that the communities themselves saw. And then so we would be able to track Are we seeing any differences once we have a campaign coming in? And this has been, we're fine tuning this as we go along. So this is still all in development. The results so far, so we've only been doing this since 2018. And so far we've reached 29 communities with over 20 schools, and we're still ongoing now. Actually, this week we have a current guardian's been run out in the district of Sawhata, but I'm stuck outside of Samoa, so I am unfortunately there. And so it's a little bit frustrating, but it's just wonderful to see that we are still continuing to build on this program and have it going. And so by the time I finish this next week, we will have another school to add onto this list. So we've got over 500 students that are directly impacted, but also the social diffusion into the 500 families that has. Because of the songs and the games, the kids take it home and they talk excitedly about it. And we've got parents coming up and asking questions about certain things. So that social diffusion and that questioning is really a key part of this. And it's due to the stickiness of the concepts that we're training because of the games, the chants, the songs. That we continue to hear long after we've gone. We hear that from the teachers that the kids are still singing. There's this thing of pride of place, and we see this in the kids that they really are in awe because some of the history that they've not been taught, some of their place in the Pacific history, and you can see this change that washes over them, and knowing that there's these amazing things to be proud of. We've had educators that are trained, and that's building the capacity of these youth and being able to deliver this education system has been really fantastic as well. And the school teachers as well, training them in how they can develop their own while we don't have the guardians there, how they can do it for the subsequent years that they are at the school and develop their own resources. What we're working on now is institutionalizing and mainstreaming this approach and the modules that we've created into the national school curriculum. So we're currently working with the Ministry of Education and UNESCO right now through a project in formalizing this approach. And then by the end of the year, this will be folded into the national school primary curriculum. And then next year, rolled out with more teacher training across Samoa. So this is one way that we're looking at sustaining the program. It's also embedded in the Samoa Ocean Strategy as a key environmental outreach but education tool, and the government really is heavily involved in the Guardians because it's been co-created with government. The commitment by the partners also is a key result here, because all the partners have now been bringing resources, in-kind support to really sustain the program and then amplify the concept and seek further funding, because it's not a cheap program to run, but it is definitely an impactful one. And as we see through the myriad of press that we've been getting across Samoa and being on local interviews and the like. Some of the lessons that we've had for success is that this experiential hands-on is really, it's effective because it's fun and we can just see it works. And that partnerships was crucial for that buy-in, for that co-creation, that co-design, co-creation. Now has formed this synergy that everyone has ownership over it. So everyone's bringing things to the table. And I'm, for myself, I'm just the humble spokesperson for it that is representing the collective in order for us to really share some of our lessons and try to share more of this approach and attract more partners if there's interest. However, when you're having so many partners, you can imagine it's like herding cats, because a lot of the partners have their own constraints with work plans. They've got their own priorities to be working with. So that's been a little bit of a constraint, and which is eked out over time, but it is definitely really important, and it's something that we're getting much better at. That the relationships, the working relationships that's developed through building this program has really enhanced other areas of work between the different ministries and the partners that are on the ground in doing environmental research work that also helps other government departments. So that's another key lesson that we've learnt here. We've learnt that there's not enough capacity in a lot of our schools to really take this on the individual level. So we're working on trying to build more capacity in our teachers and in our trainers so that we can reach more schools and kids. The other lesson is that it requires significant funds to really pull in these partners, and that's been a little bit of a hamstring for us for quite some time to really attract and secure funding so that we can keep it going, because we're seeing such great impact from this program. But it does require significant funds because there's so many partners involved, and running a voyaging canoe is like any other vessel is not exactly the cheapest thing you can do. But it is so worth it because of the impact. And I'd say not only the impact of what it is on a collective group of kids, but on individual kids. And individual kids like Sione here. And Sione here, he was, when you have in the breakout groups and the like, he's a natural orator, and he would be, he drew kids around him like moths to a light in the way that he really shone through this campaign and how he understood what was going on. And the amazing thing about this is that Sione here is blind, so he couldn't see some of the things, but because of the interactive nature of this campaign and how it was set up, it's fully inclusive, and he was able to understand the concepts and what was happening and articulate it and lead certain groups, and he was fully immersed in it. And his parents originally did not want him to partake in the games program because they were worried about what would he get out of it, and would he be teased, and a number of worries that parents have. But when we said, no, it's going to be all right, and we took a little bit of discussion, and then they allowed him to be there, and then the parents watched him. By the end of the week, they themselves were crying that they'd never seen him like that, and the stories that he would come home. He made a lot of us really emotional during the week as well, on the growth that we saw. And I will share. I probably shed a tear myself, and so did many of our other educators. But that was really impactful. The impact on him, but the impact he had on the rest of us and what we were doing. And I wanted to just make sure that we brought this story down to individuals such as Sione, because this is just one child, and there are all these individual childs in this group that are having the same experience and what they're taking home. And these sort of experiences are what some of our other countries have access to with our kids in these other countries that have these experiential education systems, and it really gets them involved with the environment, with understanding what the concepts are, and then empowering them to take action. And now we're seeing all these youth coming up and really taking the stance and keeping us adults honest, telling us, come on guys, we should be worrying about this. And that's beautiful to see. And this is why we concentrate on that cohort of kids, the primary school years, because we're not only we're empowering them as our voices, and we're empowering them because the impact that that has had on them, and that they are sharing now with a wider collective. It has all been so worthwhile because of this impact. And when we talk about impact, and a lot of the projects we're all engaged with and institutions and funders and the like, they want to see impact. I don't see any greater impact than when we are really touching the individuals, and individuals that can then make systemic change through the ripple effects that they will have on their communities and their peers. So I wanted to leave it there with the impact on the individuals. I wanted to just say whaftai tele lava for giving me the ability to share this story and what we're doing in Samoa, and thank our partners once again that helped this initiative, and thank Katie and the MIT Media Lab for allowing this platform. So yeah, thank you very much.